connecting to that memory, the psychic memory, the spirit memory, right? Which is that repetitive thing. And it's still valid information. It's not saying that it's not part of the spirit, because it's still just as physical and important as the spirit itself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know that's kind of all over the place, but that's how I view it.
Awesome. No, that was great.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you tell us, because I'm very interested in this, about seances? Beth and I had a cousin who very tragically passed away, and about a month after, I was up in Salem, but it was like Halloween time, and I went to a seance. It didn't feel, it felt like a medium talk group. It didn't really, I don't know, because I'd never been to a seance before. So what is a seance? How does it work? At the end of that meeting, I want to hear a sad story, but at the at the end of...
You could never tell by you laughing as you're saying that.
I know. At the end of the one I went to, I was like the last person she got to, and she was like, someone you know died really recently, and it was really sad. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, they don't want to talk to you. And then I started crying, and she's like, okay, that's it.
Wow.
Sorry. I know, I'm sorry.
You say that's funny, but to be honest with you, I've had spirits that don't want to talk to me as the intermediate between me and the person that's coming.
Yeah.
And some of it's because they come to a witch or they come to a psychic, and that psychic memory of being a devout religious person or being
interesting.
The spirit will literally in my mind say, no, I'm not talking to you. Do you know? So it does happen.
Very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely
I never even
happens.
thought of that.
No, I think it was carryover from... She probably like legit just wasn't ready to talk to
That's
you.
That's what she said. She said she's not ready to talk to you yet.
I usually won't do a mediumship reading with somebody that hasn't been gone for at least a year.
A lot of people have said that to me.
It's twofold for me. One, I know this is going to sound horrible. I'm not a terrible empath. That's not something I do. I don't handle people's emotions very well. If anything, I'm not void of emotion, but I don't wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I'm not overly comforting as a person. I know my flaws, and I don't want somebody who's just passed away to have to sit there and comfort and console that person in that type of way with a fresh death. Does that make sense? Or a fresh passing?
Totally, yeah.
The other thing is, I also view the spirit kind of like if this world, when you're born into this world, you don't start talking right out of the womb, right? When you're born, exactly. When you're born into another world and into another realm, because, we are living in this place that's just layered with other dimensions. I mean, I don't believe that you're birthed into that world immediately able to communicate, or at least not being able to communicate actively or very well. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
That definitely makes sense. And at that time, I had other people say the same thing, where I was like, please, I want to talk to her. And they were like, you got to give it like 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not how it works. And I did. And I feel like I have talked to her. So I feel very good now.
Good.
What is a seance? How do they work? Is it like it's in the movies, people sitting around a table? Do you guys get ever, and I know this probably isn't often, but do you sometimes get like apparitions that show up? How does it work?
Yes. Not ectoplasm apparitions like you've seen in some of the old pictures of spiritualist churches and that sort of thing. I do table seances, which has to be, within 20 people in the room or less, preferably less. I like to have 10 people is usually my favorite. But we do sell out to 50 people in October. Yeah. And at that point, you're doing a very standing in a stage, podium style, I feel something over here, let me talk to this person.
Yes, so that's what I went to.
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Some people prefer that type of environment. I don't. I prefer to be sitting around a table, and we don't have to hold hands. We don't have to do any of that. But I use Laurie Cabot's Crystal Countdown to get everybody into a mindset of alpha, which is where you're allowing yourself to tap into that subconscious mind, opening up your pineal gland and getting information. And it draws the spirits closer to you, because at that point, you're kind of expanding your astral field, right? You're expanding your aura. And then I'm finding it easier to contact the spirits around you once you're in a calm, relaxed place. If I go into a podium style seance, I feel a little disconnected from the people. And it's not that I need information from you, but I want to feel comfortable and acquainted with your power, your energy around you, in order to feel comfortable giving you the information. So sitting in a podium style, it's effective. Some people really enjoy it. I also don't like doing mediumship standing. One of my coworkers, Leanne Marama, who reads with us, who's also a very phenomenal medium and runs seances as well, she loves to stand and move around and bounce around. I have no desire to do that. If I feel like I'm moving, It's almost like stop and smell the roses. I have to be in this very calm, cool, collected place. And if I'm bouncing around, I'm not in that place for me. So I do table seances. I have people sit around the table. We do a meditation. I then teach them how to use a pendulum, a little bit of automatic writing. Sometimes we'll do some scrying, which I'm not very good at. I don't see things very, very well. So I'll teach them how to scry. And then I go around and I hold their hands and I give them personal messages. I'm known as what's called an evidentiary medium. I give you information, evidence, more than messages most of the time. I'm not saying that there's never been a message that has come through, but if I hold your hand and I hear something that says Julie passed away from,
No, you can't say Julie. That's my best friend's name, and that would kill me.
I'm sorry, Julie. Well, Stacy then.
Perfect. I don't know.
Stacy's okay.
Okay. So I get information and I say Stacy had this form of illness, and she's so on and so forth. Whatever information comes up, and I just find it so much more personable. So that's really the way I do it. I think it's just more of a way to connect to the people, and the more interaction and the closeness that you have with people at a table seance, to me, turns into not only a spirit medium session, but also kind of I don't even know the word I'm looking for, a therapy group almost. Because then people start, if I do a reading and I touch one person's hand and then I do the next person next to them, and they're both crying or they're both, consoling each other over this, it actually turns into a really beautiful experience. And people leave going, I just made a friend that I sat there and cried with that I've never met before. And I've had people, because I've been doing this for so long, contact me and say, I made a best friend doing this, and they're able to talk about the loss of their loved ones together, where they may not be able to do that with their friends on a day-to-day basis.
Right. No, that's beautiful. I can see how that would be like group therapy.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that you like to do your seances sitting down as
do.
opposed to up and moving around. In addition to kind of like the nervous energy, do you ever get a feeling like I need to sit down because I might be a little dizzy sort of thing, or...
Yeah, absolutely. When I start getting information, it hits me, and especially if you're doing a whole room of people, it starts hitting you like, okay, what direction is this coming from? Who am I looking at? What am I trying to connect with? I get very much so, immediately my stomach starts grumbling as soon as I know that sounds strange, but we all have physical triggers that say, hey, there's something going on right here. And then all of a sudden I get woozy. I start to get woozy. So I do think that's probably why I prefer to sit as well.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's something we talk about a lot when we go into homes that we feel there's a ghost. Like, we will walk in the door and immediately, start going cross-eyed. Do you feel like there's something on your chest?
Yep.
And that's when we, look at each other and we're like, okay, someone's here.
Yeah. My youngest sister is actually a spirit medium as well, which is strange. There's 3 of us that are psychics, and I'm one of 8. So I have a huge family. But there's 3 of us in my immediate family that do some work with spirit, and she's a nurse, and she deals with a lot of deceased loved ones in her 9-to-5 job, and she gets triggers all the time. She walks into a room and she immediately feels like she's very lightheaded. She gets her tongue tingles. She says that her tongue starts to tingle on the tip of it, and that's her trigger that there's something in the room that she needs to commune with.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah. Very cool.
Think we're getting any sort of signals that we're just not picking up on yet?
I don't know. I know for me, when I do Reiki on people, I have certain signals. Like, every Reiki master has different twitches and stuff that we get.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, for me, when I go in and I'm, trying to talk to someone's higher self to, let them know what's about to go on, when they say yes, this eyelid, goes up.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Every time. And when, another interesting one, I'm so sorry, I'm just talking about this, but when I'm on someone's crown chakra, if they're experiencing nightmares, these 2 fingers start to wiggle. And if someone's sleeping too much, these 2 fingers start to wiggle.
Oh.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Very cool.
It took me 2 years to realize, because, and I'm sure it's the same way for you guys, when you're doing it, it takes you a while to realize exactly, what your body is moving to with the energy and, what it all means.
I go to a Reiki master regularly because you get psychic buildup too.
Yeah,
and I constantly, every time, one of my best friends is a Reiki master, and she calls me up and she goes, "Well, I haven't seen you in 3 months. do you want a session? And I'm like, yeah, I probably need it. I'll get third eye stuff and I'll get crown chakra stuff regularly. But the other one is my root chakra, because I think we tend to be so up here when you're vibrating so far above everything else that you need something to ground you. And I think I I think I whack my root chakra in some way, and not such a good thing. So she helps me ground by doing something with my root chakra as well. And I will tell you, I don't think I could be a psychic without her, practicing Reiki on me.
Yes. A lot of people who deal with that stuff, it's exactly what you said, because you're taking in so much that you want to make sure that like other people's stuff isn't like stuck to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's something that I am very much so push when I meet new psychics. I tell them all the time, if you're reading all day, you're going to have a psychic headache. It just happens to everybody. 2, when you go home, you have everybody's junk and energy and nastiness all over you. You need to bathe before you go to bed, because when you lay down in bed, your brain level, just like Lori talks about, the levels of the brain waves, go down to a place that weakens your physical senses so that your mental focus can be worked on during sleep state, right? All of that stuff is going to start pouring into your body. So you have to, as a psychic, and probably as a Reiki practitioner, bathe prior to sleeping, in my opinion. I think it just cleanses the body to prepare your vessel to kind of deal with the mental psychic stuff in sleep state.
For those of us who don't do a mental bathing before bed, what might that look like?
What it looks like for me, like the actual bathing process. Yeah. So to me, it's actually a physical thing. I use sea salt in a bath, and I heard you say that you make bath bombs. So a bath bomb, anything that has a sea salt or a kosher salt, it will pull the toxins, pull the energy out of your skin. But then I also, Charles Godfrey Leland wrote The Mystic Will, who was an anthropologist many, many, many eons ago. He wrote in a book that before going to bed, you should concentrate on kind of visualizing colors to relax your mind and kind of let go of anything. But then you need to tell yourself, release everything. And it's literally telling yourself what to do. And it's going to affect you mentally by telling yourself what to do.
What is when you go into a house, when someone asks you to do a spirit cleaning in a house, can you kind of go over what you do, and then also if you have like a favorite story about it?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I actually don't do it by myself. And really, I have to be logical about this. I'm not going to stop into somebody's house that I don't know and do something like this. So even when I do house parties, I always bring somebody with me. It's a safety thing. And I know that sounds very, we're not very spiritual sounding about it, but you have to protect yourself. Anybody who does house cleansings, I always go in a group of 3. I go in as kind of the medium. I go in and I test the waters. I try to interact with whatever's there or feel whatever is there. And then we make a game plan of how to actively address the situation. Sometimes it's very simplistic. Psychic memory is attached to an item in the house. Remove the item, cleanse the item, whatever that is, get rid of it, Or sometimes it's something a little bit more serious where there's a presence that just will not either move on or will not relinquish control of a specific location. And then that's a little bit of a different process. We go in and we'll do a ritualistic cleansing of the home. We tell the person that is requesting the cleansing to do a physical cleansing of the home prior. I'm a big user of frankincense and myrrh, which are great for cleansing the spaces. I don't tend to use sage as much. Again, it's a personal thing. Spirit of place where we live in this area is very much so the place of the Native Americans. And I don't have Native American blood, and I'm not saying that this is about appropriation, because that's not even the conversation that I'm trying to have. But my ancestors don't connect energy-wise, don't connect with sage. So I don't connect with sage in some way. And that may sound stupid, but that's how I feel about it. So I always use frankincense and myrrh, and I use a holy water, which holy water is just simply salt and water. And I use sprinkling herbs usually. So I'll use some lavender, chamomile. Depending on what type of situation, I bundle them up and make them into a asperger, which is just a fancy word for a sprinkling tool. And I'll go around and I'll sprinkle and I'll sense, and I will command, if needed, the spirit to leave using a ritual called the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, which is basically using names of God in the Hebrew dialect to remove negativity from the home. Or I will just talk and communicate with the spirit and ask them, please, this place is no longer for you. Let's get you to move on to a better place. Let's get you to connect with your loved ones that are waiting for you and kind of usher them that way. And that's usually the process that we do. I do it with my coven, and we've been doing it for quite a few years. And there's been some situations where I don't know what your opinion is on demonic